not for me, but when you guys are listening to you on streaming, it's really quiet.
Yep.
All right, I will call to order the meeting of the Planning Commission of Thursday, June 1st, 2023. If we can start with roll call, please.
Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Hutt.
Here.
Commissioners Pevsner,
Yay.
Simcock,
Here.
and Yo.
Here.
All right, next up is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any edits they would like to make?
The agenda?
I'm sorry, not on the agenda. Approval of the agenda. Hearing no changes recommended, I will accept a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next up is approval of the minutes of May 4th, 2023 Planning Commission. Does anybody have any proposed edits for those minutes?
No corrections for me. They look good.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next up is our council liaison report.
Council has no report at this time, just thank you for all you do.
Thank you. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. Seeing no input, we will close that section. Next up is a public hearing, Planning Commission Resolution Number 23-08, recommending the City Council amend Chapter 9.32 Noise of Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. Does City have a presentation?
I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation, more as an introductory. We'll go to the next slide. So the agenda today is essentially, we are conducting a public hearing. I didn't want to bring this as a discussion item just for sake of time. So if we do not make a recommendation for approval today, we can go ahead and continue it to a date certain. We also intend to make live edits to the language of the ordinance as needed. Also, just to give you a forecast for city council meetings, if this gets approved today, then I'm targeting June 27th for first reading before City Council and July 11th for second reading. And that would make the ordinance effective date August 10th, 2023. If we didn't get through today and we come back, I still might be able to hold that hearing, but it would be, I would have to notice the City Council meeting before we actually took action. So I try not to do that. So again, the City Council, I believe it was introduced by Council Member Krebs with concurrence from the rest of the City Council, who had a desire to amend the ordinance. So I have actually hired CSDA Design Group. They are an architectural and acoustical engineering firm. Indy Salvata is the principal or director of acoustics for CSDA, and you met him previously. He represented Alverno as their acoustical expert. So he prepared this ordinance and also conducted a city survey, and we modeled on some sections of the code the cities of Duarte, Pasadena, and I believe even South Pasadena, some aspects of it. Also, I did want to point out that under the CEQA exemption in the staff report, I made a reference to a different section, including 1537, I believe. I just had it here and I knew I was going to lose it. There it is. 15378, A and B5, and I didn't include those in the resolution or the ordinance I intended not to include that section, so I removed it. And that's the reason why I have the, at least the ordinances, both for Planning Commission resolution and the draft City Council ordinance on the dais. Basically, that's the language that's included in the staff report now. So I'm not going to go through each of these sections. We're going to do that in the cleanup, but these are some of the sections, and we introduced a number of new sections and had to reorder section numbers throughout the document. And again, your alternatives today is to approve Resolution 2308, or approve with modifications, or continue to a date certain. And we are recommending probably some modifications. Just to let you know that we did receive a list of modifications from John Hutt, which was very helpful because we try to capture those already in the ordinance that Josh is going to put up now. And we'll go ahead and commence with live edits to that.
Should we take public comment before or after we make those edits?
Both.
I think it would be best to take them before the commission begins its discussion.
All right. At this time, the Planning Commission will take public comment on this specific agenda item. Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. Seeing no comments, I will bring this back to the commission. So you have a version that already has Commissioner Hutt's, sorry, Vice Chair Hutt's edits in it?
John's fine.
Not till after the meeting.
Did receive an email at about 5:20 this afternoon with a list of corrections to make, and those are highlighted here on screen for you. The first is changing the definition to decipherable, then holiday.
Yeah, and I think all these things are really pretty, my comments were all cleanup sort of in nature. I think the only substantive thing I really want to talk about is when we get down to section 932080, dealing with the leaf blowers.
Oh, yeah, that's on my list too.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to review the changes made to schools, churches, and other institutional uses? I made these highlighted changes, and I don't know if this was the intention.
So what I had made an edit to, which was included in your packet, was I removed hospitals, since we don't have any formal hospitals in town, and I added institutional uses, which is more of a catch-all now.
Yeah. So I think school, church, or other institutional use is a good descriptor. So that, I think, works really well.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you just conform that through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's the end of that section, so we can start at the beginning.
So the first section that I had comments on was 932040. Does anybody have any comments before that?
Yeah, there were a couple of changes up there that were just cleanups on the definitions. And one of them is holiday, where we had some separate definition here that we already have a definition in the code, so we just cross-reference.
Yep.
Then decipherable, that, yes, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't
means-
quite
yeah,
work, right?
It was kind of weird.
Okay, should we keep?
Okay, well, I have a question, just in general. Does this cover gas-powered generators when power's down?
It does.
It does, so they're now illegal
No, they're permitted,
during,
and they could, there's also language in there that you would have to, if you have to exercise them, basically, you have to run them as a matter of law for public entities or, you know, hospitals or, you know, whoever has a generator, they're allowed to use it.
oh, I know, but, so if you have a generator, your power goes out, and you don't have a Tesla battery in your house, and you start it up, you're gonna be in violation of the law, whether you're helping, even if your 3 neighbors plug into it, right?
No,
No?
no.
Oh, that's what I thought because this says commercial and industrial, okay.
What section are you reading?
I think it's,
But that's only for emergency generators.
that's what I'm saying, yeah, for emergency use.
A regular generator that you keep around your house is not an emergency generator. I think an emergency generator are the ones that are generally fixed to like the building across the street, so that if the power goes out, it automatically kicks on.
No, but you can buy portable ones that will function the same.
No, they're not emergency generators. They're just generators.
Yes, they are.
No.
Because I use them in an emergency when my power went down. I've already done this.
You're thinking about this the wrong way, I might submit. I think if we call them emergency generators because they can be used in emergency, then they're gonna be covered by this, rather right now,
But-
they're specifically
So
excluded.
I'm asking, is there language that if something is, in your definition, not an emergency generator, is being used in such, can be defined as such?
Yeah, I don't think there's any violation on it as long as it's not too loud, right?
They're pretty loud.
Well,
6 decibels is not much,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Especially when the power's out, everything's quiet.
right?
well, but I mean, for that part, that it's all about versus ambient, right? So if the power's out, probably a lot of people are running their generators,
And now ambience.
and ambient's higher.
So
right?
then if someone's bona fide commercial emergency generator goes off, then all of a sudden the ambient noise is irrelevant, because you're now held to that standard, correct? Is that the language? This is all about language.
I don't understand your question.
Well, he's saying if there's an emergency and other emergency generators are going off, then the ambient noise is here. So
Yep.
if it's 6 decibel, if you start up yours that you're saying is not defined as emergency generator, it's the same decibel level, then it's exempt because it's not exhibiting any more than the ambient.
Correct.
noise. All right, just.
Should we move on?
You said you had something in 932.040?
Yeah, in 932 or 040B, I was curious, the way it's written, it says no less than 5 feet from any building or wall, but the property line could easily be further than that. And so does that code need?
Yeah, I added a word preferably, because it doesn't seem like that's, to your point, always gonna be feasible
Yeah.
to do.
Okay, that works. And then on 932.050A, and I always get this confused, do we not capitalize defined terms in the city code?
No,
Oh,
Okay.
not like in a contract,
Okay.
which to me is very confusing, but
Yep.
we're not fixing that
Nope.
tonight.
What's the capitalization you're looking at?
It said local ambient, but ambient noise is a defined term, so I didn't know if it needed to be capitalized to indicate that it was that defined term.
See the underlying strike through here. Oh, you're viewing simple. Yes. No, go ahead and leave it. Would you prefer, what we're looking at, what we see on screen is not the full underlined strike through. Would you prefer that,
I prefer the full view,
full view?
Yeah.
Okay.
the full markup instead of the simple markup. Yep.
Okay.
Lost my place. Where were we?
We're on 932.050.
The next comment I had was 932-080, D.
The leaf blower.
Yeah, this is the one I think we need to talk about.
So the challenge I had with this was singling out the leaf blower. Because there's plenty of different types of motors and engines that would be used for gardening or landscaping. And so it seemed like we should either single out all of them or single out none of them.
So the reason why we're singling out one at this time, this matter is actually going to the Environmental Commission with James Carlson, and he reviewed this language. He thinks it's fine. And then to go beyond this, the Natural Resources Commission is going to be making changes, possible changes to other sources of noise, which could include lawnmowers.
When the city council asked to commission this revision, did they express a policy guidance on leaf blowers?
They didn't. This subject has come up a number of times. It was directed to the Environmental Commission to address, but this is fairly recent. They haven't even had their initial discussion. The City Council directed the Planning Commission to update the noise ordinance, even though this isn't really under the Commission's purview. But you probably have the most background, especially going through the Alverno public hearings on this topic.
Okay. I mean, my recommendation on this section is to just strike it and wait till there's a comprehensive policy that's put forth, rather than willy-nilly picking and choosing what we go up against. But I'm open to discussion on that.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, we have so many other, even just lawn equipment. I mean, you know, edgers and,
You're right.
you know, hedge trimmers and lawnmowers, and I don't know, it seems kind of strange to me. I agree. To
Yeah,
just pick it out.
I mean, my thought is we're getting pretty far out of our purview. I wonder if it makes sense to do this, and if it does make sense to do this, whether we want to be effective in October of this year. Like, if you were going to do it, did you want to give people some time to, you know, go buy electric leaf blowers or whatever? But I don't know, I guess this is just a punt, but this seems like a city council choice to make to me. So, I don't know. I guess I don't really care if we strike it, put brackets around it, or whatever, but we need to say, I think, look, we've reviewed the whole ordinance, we fixed all the other stuff, it's good to go. Here's the big issue. You guys decide what you want to do on this.
Do you feel strongly enough to make a recommendation as to what they do? Like, we recommend that you review it as part of a comprehensive policy, or you want to just leave it up to them?
I don't know. It's not zoning. It's
Yeah, it's not planning.
I'm a little less. I guess I do think that even if we are going to put it in, that we said this was going to be effective in August.
That can change.
Maybe September. Like 1 or 2 months notice seems really tight. It seems like you'd want to at least push that date out a year or something. But you know.
Well, and let me ask you this, because one of my questions further down is in the infraction side of this. It's $1,000 per infraction per day, or up to 6 months, up to $1,000 and up to 6 months in jail. Which seems a little draconian for using a leaf blower, in my opinion. So does that part of the infraction code apply to this as well? That's the violation penalty, section 932-140.
It's the very last section in this ordinance, which is an existing section. The only edit to this was renumbering the section number.
This was the last item on my list, but we're jumping ahead.
But I mean, the thing is that I mean, I think it's an appropriate penalty for the existing violations. And so if we add a new violation that's really easy to trip, it changes the nature of the penalty, right? So even though we haven't changed the penalty, we're talking about imposing it on something that's a lot easier to violate. So, you know, there's this language in here that it's limited to the landscape business owner, but then it also talks about a homeowner. I don't know, I mean, maybe it could use some warnings before people, I mean, I'm pretty sure the prosecutor's not gonna throw somebody in jail for 6 months for a leaf blower, but if somebody tried to, that seems pretty crazy.
I don't know on this count.
So this violation provision, 9.32.140, does apply to the entire chapter. So anything that is included in the red line, if City Council approves, the violation would also apply.
Is this the real reason we're getting rid of gas-powered leaf blowers? Or are we just putting it here? I mean, I realize that they're noisy, but is that the reason we're trying to get them out of the city? Are we trying to get, if we're trying to do same thing with other lawn gardening equipment, is this more like is this noise, or is this like air pollution?
Well, it was noise until we added
Until we added leaf
Till we
blower
added-
to it,
till we added
or
gas-powered,
gas-powered to it, yes,
right? Because the section is actually leaf blower.
right. My leaf blower.
And it just says don't use it outside of those normal hours.
Right.
A number of other cities are also banning them, and
Mhm.
even banning them on Sundays. No gas-powered equipment or even electric-powered equipment on Sundays.
But are they banning just leaf blowers? Because to your point, a string trimmer or an edger
Makes as
is
much
pretty
noise.
dang noisy as a blower.
And I don't feel that this is a planning conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, maybe we bracket it and we say to the council, we recommend striking this, but it's not really our gig, and at least make the implementation date later, and/or put in, warnings before you throw somebody in jail for 6 months.
Or you can defer it to the Environmental Services Commission.
Yeah, that was my personal recommendation, is to have a comprehensive policy that covers all of that. Because to your point, if we're trying to get rid of gas-powered devices, that's not a noise ordinance.
Right. Right.
And I would recommend that we strike it.
Yeah, I agree.
The red line will be what
rid of it.
goes to City Council, so if the Planning Commission doesn't want to offer this section of the leaf blower provision, it can strike the section or the addition.
Yeah.
But if we do that, it's not gonna show up at all, right?
Right.
No.
So, you can let them know that we considered this and we think it's not really in our purview, and if they want to put it in, that's up to them.
And I think the Environmental Commission is going to be considering this 1 week prior before it goes to City Council.
Okay.
So we'll see. I think they're going to start as a discussion item, and it probably will be several meetings. But I can inform council.
Okay, so I think what we're saying is we're bracketing it and letting City Council know that we don't think that this is under our purview, that we recommend a comprehensive plan that's being considered by another organization, that the date at which it's effective should be pushed later, and that this not be subject to the same instant penalties of the last section.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Any objection to that?
Bill, are you good with that, or do you just want to strike it?
Well, bracketing accomplishes what you want, which is allows them to see it without telling us that we sort of want you to sidestep this, even though we're not actually. That's fine. The bracketing, I think, is appropriate then.
Okay.
Yeah, bracketing for their specific inclusion or exclusion. And then I see that our representative who helped us write these codes is here, and I actually had some questions.
Okay.
Is it possible that he can come up and talk to us?
Yes, please.
Hello, welcome. So, as I looked at this, it seemed that outside of the single hard cap to noise, that everything else is based on ambient noise and how close you are to the ambient noise at the time. Which, I guess my question is, from an actual enforceability of this, how are we going to determine that ambient noise? And who's going to be responsible for doing that?
There is a updated definition of ambient noise at the top of the page. And in that definition, there's an outline of how to measure and quantify that ambient noise.
We felt that, oh, thank you. I do project. We felt that new definition provided a lot of clarity as to how to quantify the ambient noise. What was there before was, 2 minutes, I think, a 2-minute measurement, and it just didn't really, it was a lot harder to enforce. This is a little longer measurement, and thus you get more time that you can wait and say, okay, this is now your ambient, and how far over or under the ambient are you? So we felt that was much clearer. In terms of who's going to enforce it, whoever the city deploys that have the sound meters, which may be enforcement officers, police officers, that's up to you guys.
And so, to determine the noises that should be excluded, the occasional and transient sources, do we need to train people to determine what those are? Does that change the duration of time that we're taking this measurement? How do those get excluded?
I mean, I think we felt like it was written pretty clearly that if it's a transient noise, something that occurs every so often, that we set hard limits that I think are pretty easy to understand. If you're out there with the meter and it exceeds a certain decibel limit, you're in violation, right? And I don't think, our goal is not to make it complicated and not to make it that people need additional training. We're not trying to get specialized people out in the field to do this. We used language that we feel is similar to what the adjacent cities are also using, and that is much easier to enforce.
Are we going to develop sort of ambient noise readings that are generalized, like maybe the curves for across the day because it's louder at certain times of day than others, that we can say, this is our estimate of what ambient is, or is it always just going to be as measured? As measured.
It's best to take it into account at the time that the incident is occurring. I don't think it's a great idea to try and create like, okay, during the day, it's always going to be this much and you're this far over. Because as we've seen, the day fluctuates quite a bit, right? And then you've got holiday times, you've got weekend time. So I think it's taken in the moment.
So the ambient noise needs to be taken basically at a relative similar time as whenever this infraction allegedly occurs, right? And during the infraction, you can't measure the ambient noise because the infraction is happening.
Understood, right.
So I guess if you're standing across from a place that has a bunch of traffic,
okay,
the traffic would generally be considered if it was 1 or 2 during the measurement period, this occasional or occasional and transient source. But if cars are coming every minute, and so then you have 15 of these events during the 15-minute measurement period, are they really, does that make them ambient noise?
Yeah, that is, if that is part of your, let's use a good example here. Some of the major streets, Sierra Madre, for instance, where you've got a decent amount of traffic, that amount of traffic flow is part of your ambient. If you're 1 or 2 streets over, it's not part of your ambient because it's much quieter. So absolutely, and that's why I think taking the measurement in the moment is very important. And we tried to create limits that aren't always dependent on ambient for the situation that you're talking about. A lot of situations that came up in these conversations have to do with party noise, for instance, right? Or event noise. How are you supposed to take an ambient while the event is going on? We took that into consideration. We said, okay, fine, it's not dependent on the ambient. There's a hard limit, and you cannot exceed that hard limit, right? So I think that sort of cut down on how often you need to be 5 or 10 dB over ambient. When you're talking about mechanical pieces of equipment in which you're 6 dB over the ambient, those generally run for longer periods of time. So you can capture a longer period of time, and they're steady state. So it's a lot easier to evaluate whether they are over or under the ambient because they're running continuous. But for other types of noise that fluctuate, we went to a different approach of creating hard limits, because you're absolutely right. Trying to measure the ambient and say you're over the ambient, it's not going to happen.
And you did that for public property only, correct? So it's only, there's only where you have over 70 dBA is for like public property. It's not under the rent. So if there was a party at a house,
I believe we've covered.
I think it's still 6 decibels over ambient, right?
There's
I thought there was a hard limit.
Was there?
there should be a hard limit. There's event noise. I mean, party at the house. Yeah, you're going to get in trouble. There's yeah. But the 6 dB over ambient, I do want to be very clear. It says machine or device. So our intention was more like HVAC consistent steady state sort of noise.
Okay.
How loud does a child on a playground yell?
70.
Where?
You know, you got a bunch of kids. You're talking about public school. They're all yelling during lunchtime. It sort of fluctuates. You can get up to 70. But it's pretty transient, right? They yell, someone says, hey, keep it down, or get away from the fence, or time to go back into class. It's not consistent for 3 to 4 hours.
How about a whistle? How loud is a whistle?
Standard sort of gym whistle, you can get up to like 90 dBA. It's very piercing, and our ears are very sensitive to those sorts of high piercing tones. Again, transient, right? And now if someone's outside blowing a whistle constantly, then yes, that would be enforceable. You could call someone and say, look, this is annoying, and if it doesn't fall under any one of these items, the last item, which now the numbering is all different, I want to say 130, maybe the last item, the sort of catch-all at the end, right? If you keep scrolling, 110, 120, 130, right.
Unnecessary, unusual.
Correct. So that does catch some of these other noise concerns that we can't quantify every single situation. So volume, pitch, intensity, you're talking about a whistle. Let's say you've got a neighbor that feels like they want to blow the whistle every morning at 5 a.m. for a half hour. Item, 932, 130 would be enforceable because technically we don't have specific language about whistles, but we do have language that talks about volume, pitch, intensity, duration, frequencies. So we try and cover sort of generally so that we can catch everything else that's not specifically covered here.
Okay.
We've noticed that this was partially modeled on some other cities' ordinances. Do we have experience with those other cities actually enforcing their ordinance? Like, does this structure with the ambient, have we seen other cities actually enforce that? Because it seems like one of the issues that we've had is, you know, an inability to enforce what seems pretty widely understood to be too loud.
Other than Pasadena, not sure. We've used some of Duarte's language in here, but I'm not sure how they address the enforcement on a consistent basis.
And would this language be indicative for if somebody wanted to bring a private nuisance action against, if there were a neighbor that were continually loud? Yeah, I don't know if this is the kind of thing you could say, well, look, the city code says it's 6 over ambient, and they're, I guess I'm answering council. Does this help establish that, or is that just a totally separate thing?
I believe it would be a completely different standard. A private nuisance claim wouldn't necessarily point to the city laws, but 932-140 allows an additional violation from the city of a nuisance violation, I believe. Or sorry, it's 150.
We don't have a 150, so it'd be 140.
Yep, additional remedies.
It's on the final edition, I believe. So an additional remedy above that $1,000 fine or jail could be a public nuisance.
Okay.
Under this chapter.
And are these thresholds pretty common in other cities, like the 6 over ambient?
Correct.
And that's because it's logarithmic, that's 4 times as loud?
No. 10 dB is considered twice as loud.
10 dB is twice as loud.
So, 6 dB is what we consider a noticeable difference.
Any other questions?
No, it does seem very hard to enforce, to me. It sounds like it would be very difficult to enforce. I mean, you'd have to be out there with a meter for 5 minutes and 15 minutes and tell them to keep doing the things, or just to get ambient, and then you'd have to get the noise. The noise is very, very dependent. The decibel reading is very dependent on distance from the noise. So, that's going to be very, if I'm 1 foot away from you, obviously it's going to be a lot louder if I'm 100 feet away. So reproducing a noise that was being made maybe a half an hour ago when the police were called might be difficult. I mean, it just all sounds difficult to, I'm not sure that's our area here, but that just seems difficult to enforce.
Well, and I guess that's, it might be one of the reasons why just banning leaf blowers is what people want to do. But although it seems really narrow, it's just that, well, this thing is one thing that really pisses a lot of people off, right?
Yep.
And so you're going to go out there when, your neighbor's lawn guy is going and measure, and it's a big pain, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I say, when it comes to noise, you're absolutely correct. It's a slice in time, right? But we tried to limit the items that are dependent on ambient to equipment that run generally consistently, like HVAC. So if you're next door to a guy that just installed a new air conditioner, and this thing is really annoying, and it kicks in at 6 o'clock, and you get out there by 6:30 and it's turned off, well, that's pretty frustrating, but you're certain that it's over the noise violation. Luckily, HVAC will kick back in at some point, and this allows you to say, okay, I'll stick a meter out there, I'll let it just run, and every time this thing kicks in, I'll be able to record it.
Right.
Right? But for things like event noise, which is very transient, or it happens over a few hours, but sometimes the music ramps up, sometimes the music ramps down, that's not dependent on ambient.
Right, but I think, I mean, while it may be the point of the residential noise limits, any machine, device, sound amplifying equipment, or any combination of same is a lot more than an HVAC unit.
True.
It becomes a stereo, it becomes anything. It becomes anything, I think, honestly.
And stereos it's a lot harder. If someone is having a party, they're going to turn it down, right? However, again, the last two items
That's-
here,
yeah.
130 and 140, that do discuss volume and intensity, recurrence, and if the police officers are called, that does get logged. So after a number of calls,
Right.
then that turns to sort of a thing of like, we've been called 5 times now.
Right, and that's probably not between, I forget the hours, 6 to 10 or.
Yeah, right.
6 to 9, I think.
Any other questions for our expert?
No.
Thank you.
I have a question for legal. Is the minimum misdemeanor penalty has always been 6 months or $1,000? Is that standard? Is that what you're talking about in terms of the penalty? You'd have to change the penalty, the type of penalty, like from a misdemeanor to an infraction, in order to change the sentencing and the penalties?
Are you asking if the violation as it is written now is standard throughout the city code?
Yeah, I mean, has it always been a misdemeanor for these noise violations?
Yeah.
It's always,
That
the
hasn't changed.
violation
That
of
hasn't
this
changed.
chapter has always been as is.
Yeah, because I don't see it changed,
One-
right?
Yeah.
Okay, but we're adding things to it, so.
And that's the max too, the
Right, of
1,000 and
course.
6 months.
So,
What would you have to do to get 6 months in jail for a noise infraction?
it depends on
Don't
where
try
you
it.
are.
Make the judge mad.
Right, I guess.
I don't know.
Well, I know in my line of work, a misdemeanor is I could lose my license. It's no small deal,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
You know, I could just see my neighbor having a fit about my leaf blower, because, you know, he still got, and then trapping me into some kind of, you know, sound device and then
Right.
pushing it, so.
And since this is a section of this code that the commission has been asked to edit, it can definitely be changed in the way that you see
Yeah.
fit.
I mean, my recommendation is that they look at our bracketed section, that they consider changing the penalty phase. I mean, they're the politicians, and if they can change it, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think the way this is written is pretty common with a lot of criminal stuff, that there's just broad prosecutorial discretion. Because you'd hope nobody would try to prosecute somebody for a one-time leaf blower incident.
I don't know. I mean, I just think since we're adding things that people are intrinsically probably gonna, I wouldn't say would know about, but at some point are gonna be resentful about, and think that I'm gonna get written up for a misdemeanor, and it could affect you professionally.
Yeah.
You could get sued civilly. I mean, we've seen some pretty ridiculous lawsuits and things going on in the law. It's like, it's not beyond it. So if you lay the possibility out there, then you've got lawyers with language that come after you.
Yeah, I think it raises an important point, though, that one of the things in the list of things we talked about was, you know, potentially extending a whatever. It's also makes sense that the city should do some sort of educational outreach program before it becomes effective, so people know that what it means, right?
Um, 932-110, sound trucks? Was soundtracks one of the definitions up top?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because as written, it seems like that would just be a car stereo.
Well, or there's like where I work downtown in Los Angeles, there's trucks driving around with huge speakers blaring
It's only
numbers
for
of
commercial,
things.
political, or charitable.
Yeah, political type things at amazing sound levels.
So I guess we're being proactive here, because I haven't seen these in town.
I haven't seen
The
them
only
in town
sound truck
either.
I can think of is, it happens in the 4th of July parade.
I literally have a note here. Does that mean that the 4th of July needs a noise permit?
It needs an exception permit, I
It
would
needs an
assume.
exception.
I would,
Right.
it probably does.
How about the ice cream lady?
Oh,
Oh, that's,
the ice cream lady will no longer be able to play music
Speaker, you know, she goes, but the kids wouldn't know she's coming.
because it's for commercial purposes. You're right.
It's pretty bad when our town, we have to worry about, it's the only sound.
So if we struck commercial, then that's probably, I mean, I have these pictures of the 1950s where they had those speakers mounted on a
Yeah,
station
yeah.
wagon, right? But
right.
I mean, it seems like the issue here is, we flop from this sort of, we're trying to measure to, we're trying to identify particular uses that are problematic, right? And it's sort of like two different ways to get at it. But it seems like in this one, if we're gonna prohibit these sound trucks that apparently are problems other places, there needs to be some sort of threshold above which they're problematic, because, you know, the ice cream truck is not
Yeah.
a problem.
Right.
Kids
well,
would
and
know
if you have a construction truck and you have the radio on, that fits this definition.
Wait.
Boom box, guys working out of it.
Sound trucks. Oh, yeah.
If your framer has a commercial vehicle carrying wood to your house to work on it,
Well, I guess the idea is the sound amplification equipment is not for commercial purposes, right? But I agree, it's sort of ambiguous. The sound truck thing, I don't know.
The sound truck item does say that you would need a noise permit.
Yeah, it does say any sound amplifying equipment for commercial, political, or charitable purposes.
yeah, so I get what you're saying, that it has to be for that purpose.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that would, but that would still,
be the ice cream truck for
that'd
sure.
still be the ice cream truck.
And is the ice cream truck gonna go get an exception permit? I doubt it. I don't think we want to require the ice cream truck to get an
No, I
exception
don't-
permit.
Although, even if you set a decibel limit for the ice cream truck, you don't want somebody blaring around political ads at the same level you can hear an ice cream truck. So, I don't know if we
could
can
just
really
exempt ice cream
set a
trucks.
level to, you know.
Exclusive of,
Yeah, we're
exclusive
gonna
of happy
specifically
ice
ban
cream
leaf blowers
sounds.
and specifically allow
include
ice cream trucks.
Or just transmitting music above a certain decibel level. So,
well, it's already prohibited, right? You can't
yeah.
have any sound in town greater than 85 decibel. So does that already cover this?
Well, 85 is pretty loud, though.
Yeah. Sorry, kids, no ice cream.
No 4th of July parade, no ice cream. Do we actually issue exception permits for sound? Is that something that's done now?
I have never issued one, and I'm not sure which body would be the authority to do that.
So,
What would be the fee for that, I wonder?
I don't believe I've ever seen a sound permit fee in our fee schedule.
well, it says the city manager or his designee. But I mean, it seems like, based on the way we revised the public place, all of the concerts in the park, the 4th of July parade, those would all require exception permits.
That was what I read as well about the concerts.
Yeah.
Do the concerts in the park currently get some kind of a permit, or how does that work?
believe they do. I'm not involved in organization of that. That's from the Community Services Department, so I'm not sure exactly how they get clearances.
I would think there would also be people who process temporary use permits might need special exemptions. Like, there's a lot of times people have special anniversary businesses or whatnot where you have a band playing and so if we've never processed one of these, it probably makes sense to have a form of how we do it and or include it as part of the temporary use permit.
Yeah, so it says you have to have an exemption issued by the city manager or their designee in order to do the concerts in the park. But that's existing code,
Yeah, which we've never done.
which we've never done. So should we ratify
Not
some more
that I've
code that we'll
seen.
never enforce?
Yeah, no, just nobody enforces it, I would imagine.
Well, and the problem is when the city doesn't follow its own code, it makes it very hard to enforce it against others. So we should probably start getting in the habit of issuing exception permits for concerts in the park and the 4th of July parade.
And for the ice cream truck.
Well, the ice cream truck isn't currently violated because we don't have the sound.
So are you recommending striking the sound trucks?
I don't know what to do with the sound truck because, I mean,
Yeah,
you've heard it's an issue other places. I haven't seen it here, right?
it's, I think if we took out music, so it's unlawful for anybody to install, use, or operate within the city a loudspeaker, sound amplifying equipment in a fixed or movable position or mounted upon any sound truck for the purposes of giving instruction, direction, talks, addresses, lectures, or transmitting music. If we took or transmitting music out,
But isn't that the thing that's the most annoying on these sound trucks?
no, well, from the ones I've heard, it is lectures, basically.
So as long as you deliver the lecture in a singing tone, you're okay. then.
Right, I don't know. I've been, that's the only thing I can think
Sing
of.
your
If you
political
sing it or
message
rap
or
it, then
whatever it
it's
is, right?
okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
Then it's covered by the
then it's
First Amendment.
okay, yeah. I don't know. We've never,
Where did we get this? Was this
Had
from
them
another
before.
city's code or?
No, this is, I think this was one of City of Duarte? Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's something we bracket and say, to the city council, do we even need this?
Yeah, are we solving for something that we don't need to be solving for right now? We
including
can
hospitals.
always come back and revisit this, right?
Soundtrack, except.
It's gonna happen in the next election. We're gonna get sound trucks.
We could,
I think I'm good with that we bracket both the definition of sound truck and 932-110 for sound trucks
Mhm.
with the note to city council that we don't know that this is currently something we need to solve for, and we don't know if this solves for it because we don't know what that end goal is.
And we note that it would likely inadvertently prohibit ice cream trucks.
Yep.
Which I don't think anybody's concerned about.
you
Right.
could put soundtracks in bracket, exempting.
Well, then they just sell ice cream on the
Non-ice cream
political
sound
That's right.
trucks.
They just have ice cream in there without.
Yeah,
You mean like Cheech and Chong up at Smoke?
right.
So
Is everybody okay with that path forward on the sound trucks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any other items that we wanted to discuss in this before we?
No, I'm good.
I think we
Then-
beat it to death. We're good.
Then I will entertain a motion to put forth to the city council with the commission's edits and brackets.
Yeah, I'll move we approve Planning Commission Resolution number 2308, recommending City Council amend Chapter 9.32 with the edits and bracketed suggestions that we've discussed tonight.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Maybe we'll get some ice cream now.
All right, next up, we have planning commission reports. Anybody have anything to report?
My
Right.
daughter played softball this year in the city softball league, and we had a great turnout this year. And so now they're doing the all-star leagues, and so she's involved with that. So we have Sierra Madre folks traveling all over for tournaments, and so you know it's a great way of, because people are always asking. We're down in San Clemente last week, and there's Sierra Madre, where's that? Right, so you kind of have to explain it. Pasadena, but you know, close by. But I think it's a great way that people get to find out about our great city. So
Great.
Yeah, I did have one thing. This last weekend, it was the second time I've used it this summer, is our fire department sponsors it's Smart Chipper and Green Waste Day. If you live above Grandview, you basically can make a big pile of green waste in front of your house, of branches and everything. And the people that showed up were great, professional, left it cleaner than I've ever had it, and it was really nice.
We participated in this
Yeah.
last round this last week as well, and we had a huge pile, and they took it all, chipped it all up and took it away.
Yeah,
Great program.
so if you say north of Grandview,
north of
Say-
Grandview.
what if you're on the
I don't
south
know if
side
you-
of Grandview?
I don't know. I don't know if you're on the north side of Grandview, honestly, because it said north of Grandview. So I guess north side of the streets, north of. I don't know. You just get in with your neighbor and run it across the
Just
street.
put it across the
You
street.
just carry it over there.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like the eastern portion of the western sandwich.
Right.
There you go. I have one thing to say. I will not be able to make the next meeting. So tonight is my last planning commission meeting. If you'll indulge me a sec, I will have a shameless brag that my family's going to DC for my daughter to participate in the National History Day competition after winning at county and state levels. So I'm going to, although I love the planning commission, I'd love to be here. That's going to take priority. But I just want to thank Sierra Madre for giving me this opportunity to serve on this commission. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I've had the great luck of having my time on this commission coincide with an excellent planning staff and legal counsel and tremendous collection of planning commissioners, both current and former. And so, one thing I've always been really impressed with this commission by, and I continue to be surprised with, given how ugly politics is outside, that we conduct hearings with dignity, we listen with respect to applicants and town residents. We come to these meetings, a various collection of people with different experiences and expertises, and strive really hard to get to consensus. And even when we don't, I think we're very civil and polite about it. And I can just many, many times I've come to these meetings, having reviewed the stuff, went to the project, had my mind, I thought, made up about how I was going to vote, and come in and hear thoughtful commentary from residents and persuasive arguments from fellow commissioners, and end up voting a different way. So I think it's just been a rewarding experience, and I thank you all.
We're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
I think the city owes you a debt of gratitude. I would imagine that you have had your pen on 7/8 of the code that's currently out there today for planning and zoning. You've always welcomed new commissioners and helped show them the path, and I certainly appreciate all the time and the way that you've helped guide this commission, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and, you know, if anybody has any questions, starting July 1, feel free, feel free to call or email.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
And I would concur with that sentiment. The institutional knowledge that you've been able to provide staff over the years. Actually, I've been here. We started about the same team when I came to the city of Sierra Madre. It's now been 8 years. So yes, I relied on Commissioner Hutt time and time again over the years.
My pleasure.
All right, any other commissioner reports?
When is our next meeting? Because I might not be at it. I have a vacation coming up in June, but is it the first week? So it's
That's-
It'll be Thursday the 17th, 16th, 15th, yes, 15th.
of June?
Yeah.
I will be gone as well, sorry.
Is there something on that calendar already for that date?
So that would leave us with 3 commissioners. The only item I have scheduled for the 15th, which we can postpone this one again, is the legislative update presentation by City Attorney Garagosian. That means we can come back maybe on the 20th with that one, unless he wanted to do it on July 6th, which is the next meeting at which we would be doing, have on the agenda the rotation of the chair and vice chair, 94 North Baldwin Avenue, commercial building, new construction, and 608 Baldwin Court, which is the Stonegate, one of the Stonegate projects.
Sounds like that's going to be a busy night.
Most likely, yes. We can
I
always.
mean, I think that it's probably important for us to have most of the commissioners here to hear the legislative updates, I would think.
Yeah, so we can move that to the 20th. So that means what we will be doing then is canceling the June 15th meeting.
I mean, I'm happy to meet and do the legislative update. I will be freshly back in town from vacation, so.
I'm planning on being here. But either's fine if we wanna.
Yeah, I won't, I mean, I think it's important because,
For the legislative updates?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great.
I'd like
Okay.
to make sure I'm here.
So we'll cancel June 15th and reschedule the legislative update for July 20th, when the city attorney will be present for that meeting. Those are all the updates that I have at this time.
All right. Hearing no other business, then we will adjourn.
Thank you.